All right, so you want to take a deep dive into this speech by the Bangladeshi army chief?
Yeah.
It was delivered on February 25th, 2025, at an event commemorating the victims of the 2009 BDR mutiny.
Oh, wow.
A really tragic event where dozens of army officers were killed.
Yeah, it was quite a dark time.
This speech, it sparked a lot of debate.
Mm-hmm.
You want to know what are the key points?
Yeah, what are they getting at?
What do they signal about the political landscape in Bangladesh?
Right. What's the takeaway here?
Well, luckily we've got an expert right here.
Oh, stop.
Someone who can help us untangle this knotty situation.
I'll do my best.
Oh.
What's striking to me about this speech is how the army chief is using this backdrop of national tragedy,
Right.
the BDR mutiny, to make some really pointed statements
Oh, yeah.
about the state of Bangladesh today.
Interesting.
So the BDR, or the Bangladesh Rifles,
Right.
they were a paramilitary force responsible for border security.
Yeah.
And in 2009, they staged this really violent mutiny, which was ultimately put down by the army.
Yeah. Very messy.
But the event, it remains a sensitive topic in Bangladesh.
Yeah, understandably.
And the chief's words, they carry extra weight given this context.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, he's standing on hallowed ground,
Right.
using the memory of those lost
Yeah.
to bolster his message.
Yeah, and he doesn't mince words.
No, he does not.
He states categorically that the BDR,
Now known as the Border Guard Bangladesh, or BGB,
right, BGB,
was solely responsible for the mutiny?
no ifs, ands, or buts.
Absolutely not.
He even warns against bringing up alternative theories,
Yeah,
saying that it could disrupt the legal processes that have been ongoing for over 15 years.
right.
So what do you make of that?
Well, it definitely suggests this desire to control the narrative surrounding the mutiny, to shut down any lingering questions or alternative explanations.
Yeah.
This could be about protecting the army's reputation,
Right.
or it could even be a sign of deeper anxieties about potential challenges to their authority.
So he establishes this strong, almost defensive stance right from the start.
Yeah, right out of the gate.
And then he shifts to this theme that comes up again and again.
I noticed that too.
Unity and discipline within the armed forces.
Right.
He emphasizes the need for the army to stick together,
Mm-hmm.
to resolve internal issues through dialogue and avoid seeking external solutions.
Right, closing ranks.
Yeah, it almost feels like a pep talk,
Kind of.
but with an edge to it.
Yeah, there's definitely an edge.
What is it about that edge?
That's what makes it so interesting, right?
Yeah.
Is this a genuine plea for stability within the ranks, or is it a subtle warning against dissent?
Interesting.
I mean, there have been reports of
Yeah.
internal divisions within the army, perhaps over the upcoming elections or the role of the military in politics.
Yeah.
And this call for unity, it could be interpreted as a message to those factions.
Like, hey, stay in line.
Right.
Don't rock the boat.
Yeah. So even as he's emphasizing unity. Yeah.
He's also hinting at this potential for disunity.
Yeah, right.
Creates this tension.
Yeah, a little bit.
This underlying sense that things might not be as stable as they seem.
Absolutely. And that tension seems to carry over into his remarks about the broader law and order situation in Bangladesh.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. He expresses concern about the current unrest. He's linking it to internal strife
Okay.
and criticizing those who exploit the situation for their own gain.
Right.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Why is that?
Because it's not just about maintaining order within the army anymore. It's about the army's perception of its role in maintaining order across the country.
He's starting to blur the lines
He is?
between internal military matters
Yeah,
and the broader political landscape.
you got it.
He even goes on to say that the military isn't solely responsible
Right.
for maintaining peace,
That's right.
highlighting that other security forces like the police and the Rapid Action Battalion, or the RB,
Yes.
also have a crucial role to play.
They do.
He even expresses concern that these organizations are being undermined and demoralized.
Interesting.
Why do you think he brings this up?
Well, I think this is a very deliberate move.
Okay.
By acknowledging the role of these other security forces and voicing concern for their well-being,
Yeah.
the chief is subtly inserting the army into the conversation about internal security.
I see.
He's highlighting the interconnectedness of the security apparatus,
Right.
but he's also potentially signaling that the army has a vested interest
Yeah.
in how these other forces are functioning.
It's like he's saying, We're all in this together, but we're watching,
Exactly.
and we're concerned
Very concerned.
about how things are being handled.
Yes, very much so.
It's a subtle but powerful message,
Absolutely.
especially in a country with a history of military intervention in politics.
You know, it makes you think.
It really does.
And this leads us to one of the most intriguing parts of the speech. His comments on the upcoming elections.
Yeah, get into that.
He explicitly states that Bangladesh is moving toward a free, fair, and inclusive election, even mentioning conversations with figures like Dr. Yunus,
Oh, wow.
prominent economist and advocate for democratic reform.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on this?
It's really fascinating
Yeah.
because it places the Army squarely in the middle of the electoral conversation.
Right.
Is he reassuring the public?
Maybe.
Or is he setting expectations?
It's hard to say.
Or perhaps even issuing a veiled warning to those who might try to disrupt the process?
It could be all of the above.
We need to,
We need to think about this.
yeah, we need to dig into this a bit further.
Absolutely.
Figure out what's going on beneath the surface
Right.
of these seemingly straightforward statements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
Very interesting.
For sure.
All right, well, let's pick this back up in just a minute.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back to unpack this complex situation.
I can't wait.
So stick with us.
We'll be right back.
All right, so we're back, and I think you're starting to see just how layered this speech is.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
The Army chief has brought up the BDR mutiny, emphasized unity, hinted at possible dissent, expressed concern over law and order, and now he's talking about the upcoming elections.
Right.
And even mentioning influential figures like Dr. Yunus.
That's a lot to unpack.
It's like he's carefully placing pieces on a chessboard.
Yeah, like a strategic game.
But what's the end game here?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
I think understanding the chief's statement about a free, fair, and inclusive election requires us to think about Bangladesh's history.
Okay, let's go there.
The country has experienced periods of military rule.
Yeah, that's true.
And even in times of civilian government, the army has often exerted significant influence behind the scenes.
So it's not just a democracy.
Not in the simplest sense, no.
So when he talks about elections, people are bound to listen.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just a casual comment. From any political figure, it carries the weight of the military establishment.
It carries a lot of weight.
Yeah, and that's why bringing up Dr. Yunus is so interesting.
He's a big figure.
Nobel Peace Prize laureate, known for his work on microfinance and poverty alleviation. But he's also been a vocal critic of corruption.
That's right.
And has called for political reforms.
Yeah, he's not afraid to speak his mind.
So the chief mentioning conversations with him signals an awareness of these calls for change.
Yeah, like he's acknowledging the concerns of the people.
Right, and perhaps a subtle attempt to align the army with those demanding a more transparent and accountable political system.
It's like he's saying, look, we're listening.
Right.
We understand.
We're on board with ensuring a fair process.
Exactly.
But at the same time, it could also be interpreted as a way of putting pressure on the government.
Oh, for sure.
A sort of, we're watching you message to ensure they don't try to manipulate the election.
Like a subtle warning.
Right.
That ambiguity.
Yeah.
That potential for multiple interpretations.
That's what makes this speech so fascinating.
It's a very carefully crafted message.
With multiple layers of meaning.
Oh, yeah.
It's carefully calculated.
To send signals to different audiences.
Right.
The public, the political parties, the international community.
But without explicitly stating any specific intentions.
It makes you read between the lines.
It really does.
And that brings us to another crucial point.
All right, what's that?
The chief directly addresses the audience and the media, urging them to support the army and avoid criticism.
Yeah, he even says, and I'm quoting here, do not demoralize the army we're working for the country.
That's a powerful statement.
What do you make of this appeal?
Well, I think it suggests a certain level of sensitivity to public perception.
Okay.
Perhaps even a sense of insecurity.
Oh, interesting.
The army might be concerned about its image.
Yeah.
Especially in light of past controversies and allegations of human rights abuses.
So this appeal for support could be seen as an attempt to preemptively manage any potential criticism or scrutiny.
Exactly. They're trying to get ahead of the narrative.
But could it also backfire?
It's possible.
I mean, doesn't it draw attention to the fact that there are reasons to be critical?
Oh, absolutely. By explicitly asking for trust and urging people to refrain from criticism, the chief might inadvertently be highlighting the very anxieties and mistrust he's trying to address.
It's a delicate balancing act.
It is, and it remains to be seen how this appeal will be received by the public.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
The chief's speech touches on the legacy of the BDR mutiny, internal unity within the Army, concerns about law and order and the upcoming elections.
A lot of big themes.
And woven through all of this is this sense of the Army's awareness of its own power.
Yeah.
And its role in shaping the political landscape.
Right. It's not just about these individual topics. It's about how they all connect.
It's about the Army projecting a specific image.
Exactly.
A united force.
Right.
Concerned about stability.
Committed to a fair electoral process.
But also sensitive to criticism.
And ready to assert its authority if necessary.
But what does this all actually mean for the future of Bangladesh?
That's the big question.
How will this speech be perceived by the different political actors, and what impact might it have on the lead up to the election?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. And, our listener wants to know, what are the potential implications here?
Right. What should they be paying attention to?
In the coming weeks and months.
I think first and foremost, it's crucial to watch how the government responds to this speech.
Okay, the government's response.
Do they see it as a challenge to their authority, an attempt to influence the electoral process, or simply a statement of the Army's concerns?
Yeah, their reaction will be very telling.
Very telling indeed.
And beyond the government, we should be looking at how other political parties and civil society groups react, right?
Absolutely.
Are they reassured by the chief's call for a free and fair election?
Or do they see it as a veiled threat?
A subtle reminder of the Army's potential to intervene.
Their interpretations will give us a sense of how the political landscape is shifting.
So we're looking at the government, the political parties.
And equally important is how the Army itself behaves in the lead up to the election.
Oh, yeah. Of course their actions speak louder than words.
Exactly. Do they remain neutral as they claim?
Right.
Or do they become more assertive in their efforts to maintain stability?
Any actions they take, any statements they make will be scrutinized for signs of their intentions.
It's like we're trying to read tea leaves here,
Really?
looking for clues in every gesture, every word.
And then there's the media landscape to consider.
The media is a huge part of this.
How are the chief's words being interpreted and debated in the press and online?
Are there attempts to control the narrative?
To suppress dissent or to amplify certain perspectives?
All of these factors.
The government's response, the reactions of other political players, the Army's actions, the media coverage.
They'll all feed into the overall political climate in Bangladesh.
And ultimately influence the trajectory of the election.
It's like a pressure cooker.
It is.
And this speech has just turned up the heat.
So Bangladesh is at a critical juncture.
It is.
The coming months will be crucial.
In determining whether the country can navigate a peaceful and democratic transition of power,
Right.
or whether we'll see a return to the political instability that has plagued its past.
This deep dive is definitely giving you, our listener, a lot to think about.
A lot to consider.
It's clear that this speech is more than just a commemoration of a tragic event.
It's a carefully calculated message.
That reveals a lot about the Army's thinking and its potential role in shaping Bangladesh's future.
And as we move closer to the election,
The stakes will only get higher.
absolutely.
So stay tuned as we continue to follow this developing situation.
And try to make sense of the complex interplay of forces at work in Bangladesh.
We'll be back after a quick break to explore some of the key takeaways from this deep dive.
And offer some final thoughts on what it all might mean for you.
Don't go away. We're back, and we've really we've gone deep on this speech, haven't we?
We have gone deep.
Looking at the language, the context, all the potential implications.
Layers upon layers.
But let's try to take a step back for a second. What's the big takeaway here?
The big takeaway.
What do you want our listener to really understand?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that this speech is a very clear indication that the Army sees itself as a major player in Bangladesh's political landscape.
Right.
They're not just standing on the sidelines.
Right.
They're very much engaged, shaping the narrative and signaling their intentions.
It's a power move.
It is. And whether those intentions are ultimately, benign or more self-serving, that remains to be seen.
Right, of course.
But the message is clear. The Army is a force to be reckoned with.
They want to be heard.
They do.
So it's not just about commemorating this tragic event,
Right.
or even about internal military discipline.
No, it's bigger than that.
It's a statement about power influence and the Army's perceived role in safeguarding the nation's stability.
That's exactly right. And that raises some important questions
It does.
for our listener.
For you, the listener, yeah.
How do you interpret this assertion of power?
Is it reassuring?
Or unsettling?
Does it inspire confidence or concern?
These are the questions you should be thinking about.
Because understanding the Army's role, their motivations, their potential actions, is essential to understanding the broader political dynamics in Bangladesh.
That's the key.
And we are heading into this election season.
Right around the corner.
The stakes are incredibly high.
They are.
Bangladesh is at a crossroads.
A critical juncture.
Will we see a consolidation of power?
A shift in alliances.
Or perhaps even a more assertive role for the military?
It's all on the table.
We don't know yet.
We'll have to wait and see.
But this speech
It gives us some valuable insight.
into the mindset of one of the most powerful institutions in the country.
For sure, and that's why it's so important to stay informed.
To follow the news.
Absolutely analyze the events as they unfold.
And form your own conclusions.
Don't take anything at face value.
Right.
Look for those deeper meanings, the subtle signals, the underlying motivations.
Especially in a country like Bangladesh where power dynamics are constantly shifting.
Knowledge is power.
It really is. And we hope this deep dive has given you, the listener, the knowledge and the tools to understand this complex situation.
That's our goal.
To analyze, to interpret.
To be informed.
And as always, we encourage you to keep exploring.
Keep learning.
Seek out diverse perspectives.
Absolutely.
And engage in thoughtful discussions about the issues that matter most.
Because ultimately, the future of Bangladesh depends on an informed and engaged citizenry.
That's a great point to end on.
It is. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another exploration of a complex and fascinating topic.
Until then,
Yeah.
keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.